Amazing God, we are so grateful for this night. We are so grateful for the ministries in which you have given us the privilege to serve. We are grateful for the congregations that gather in our churches each and every week. God, we are thankful for your guidance, for your direction, for the way that you empower us to do ministry, not just in our churches, but in all the world. And we just thank you, Lord. Amen. So just a couple things. Right now, I have you all on mute. And so if it just makes it easier for background noise, and what I will do is, as I ask you to share information, I will unmute you. That'll be the easiest way to do it. For some of you, I am able to see your name, so I'll call you by name. But if I don't call you by name, I'll just give you the first few numbers of your phone number, and I hope that that works. And we can, first of all, introduce ourselves to one another and get an idea of who's on the call tonight. So I am going to begin with, we have more people clicking in, with 609-306-5130. And if you just share your name, the church you're representing, and what about your church gives you joy?
My name's Linda Taylor. I'm at Juliustown United Methodist Church in the Capital District, and I am serving as pastor. And the thing that gives me the most joy is that even when I think that they're not ready to step forward, somehow they do something new and amazing.
Thank you, Linda. So the next is 609 202-9322.
Sherry Maurer from Broadway United Methodist Church, Sherry Maurer. And the thing that brings me joy, like Linda said, we're such a small church, but it seems like when we need to step up to the plate, we have people that do that.
Thank you. So the next is 610-417-7184.
Hi, this is Carolyn Walters. I am also from a Broadway United Methodist Church. We're in the Raritan Valley District in Warren County, New Jersey. And I have a small church. I've been a Cradle Methodist at Broadway. And we're struggling along with many other small churches, surrounded by several other small Methodist churches. So we're struggling with that. But we're hanging in there, and we're still working hard. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Please tell me if I'm repeating any, because this is kind of jumping around. So Nicole, can you hear us? Okay, we're going to skip Sarah.
Hang on. Okay. Hello.
Hi, Sarah.
How's it going?
It is.
So I got on the call late and I missed the prompt. What are we supposed to be saying?
What we're saying is your name, the church you're representing, your role in the church, and what gives you joy.
Okay. My name is Sarah. I'm the pastor of Round Valley and Changewater United Methodist Churches in the Raritan Valley District. Hi, Carolyn.
Hi, Sarah.
What gives me joy? My toddler gives me joy. Is this small church specific?
Yeah, small wedding your church.
That's good. What brings me joy? I really love when we can, when we have a really big impact despite our size. the Sunday that I was away for annual conference, a local addiction recovery place, Teen Challenge came, and my tiny little church of like 30 people maybe there that Sunday, in addition to their regular giving, gave $500, more than $500 to their cause. And so we might be small, but we do really good things, and that brings me joy.
Thank you. So next is Larry.
Hello, I'm Larry Durfee. I'm the pastor at Montana United Methodist Church, and soon, starting in July, it will be Asbury United Methodist Church. And I think we are in the Raritan Valley District. I think the thing that really gets me excited about the church are the people. These are two congregations that are really excited about doing things, and the energy is just generally off the charts when we get together. I love it.
Thank you. John Hartman.
Hello there. John Hartman. I'm at Mount Fern United Methodist Church, and I'm really heartened to hear from all of the other pastors who have such good things to report about their congregations, willing to step up, and the joys that are associated with that. Hoping to learn how to leverage that in my church.
Okay.
Really what I have to say.
Thank you. Okay. Let me see. Ellen.
My name is Ellen Cusack. I serve Alloway and Canton United Methodist Churches in Delaware Bay District. The thing that really excites me about the people in these two congregations is the love that they have for other people, whether it's the love for each other in these congregations, the love that they express when they ask for prayer for somebody in the community, or even when they pray for people that have suffered through some type of traumatic event at a national level. They just truly have the love of Christ, and that's exciting to me.
Well, thank you. Next is 856-299-266.
66. Hi, I'm Zachary Taylor, and I'm the pastor at New Hope United Methodist Church in Penns Grove, New Jersey, Delaware Bay District. And what gives me joy is the people I serve and praising the Lord each Sunday. I'm surrounded by great people, and they have a lot of knowledge and wisdom, and I always enjoy going to worship with them on Sunday.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
There's another 856-241-9693.
I am a member of New Hope United Methodist Church in Penns Grove.
Okay.
And the thing that excites me about our church is that we are a small church, but we're a faithful, loving group. Stand together, supporting each other and our pastor.
And we missed your first name. What is your name again?
Mae, M-A-E, Chase.
Thank you, May.
Thank you.
Okay, so Charlie, I can see you on there.
You can see me? Did you say you can see me?
I can see you.
Oh, well, I can't see you, but that's okay. Do I look good?
You look good.
I'm Pastor Charles Kinch from Malaga United Methodist Church and Portstown United Methodist Church. And what I see at Malaga specifically is the close-knit community. Even though it's a small group of individuals, they're willing to do what's needed.
Okay, thank you. Jesse.
Hi, everybody. My name's Jesse Rook. I'm a pastor at Broadway United Methodist and Port
I'm going
Colden.
to ask you to hold on 1 minute, Jesse.
No problem. All right.
Okay, try now.
Yep. So my name's Jesse Rook. I'm the pastor at Broadway United Methodist and Port Colden United Methodist out in the Raritan Valley in Warren County. Carolyn's one of my people, and Larry and Sarah are right around me. What's really encouraging, I think, is that while we are small, we're not dead yet. There's still life in the church. We've baptized a baby. We've joined members who have been attending with us for a while who are now saying that they actually want to be part of the church. We're not dead yet. We might be small, but we still got life. And I think that's something to celebrate and something to keep moving forward.
Thank you. There's, have we gotten, did anybody not get to talk? If you haven't, just unmute yourself and holler out your name. Well, I am going to trust that we are all okay, that everyone has had a chance to add something to this introduction. So welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us for this our kind of second meeting. I want to just thank Sarah again for having that breakfast at annual conference. It was a wonderful way for us to meet each other in person, and it was a good way for me to be able to have a group of people in which I am going to call upon to help us in GNJ to create a resource for small membership churches under 50 in average worship attendance, so that we can best fit your needs and the needs of your congregation and help your church to be the healthiest church in the place where it is, as well as vision and consider what is next for your congregation. So I have a passion for small church ministry, small churches. I have seen the impact that they have had, especially in their local communities. I also believe that small churches have a unique value in our society, because you have a place for people to be known. We go into most of where we are, especially in New Jersey, and we are one of just of a big group of people. And hopefully in your small church communities, people are not just another member, but instead you have relationships with them, and because of those relationships, you can really serve one another, but also you have relationships with your community, and you can reach out and serve your community. However, we know that small church ministry, as wonderful as all of these joys that we have listed here, they definitely have some challenges. And so we want to kind of come alongside you in these challenges and see what are different ways that you can learn from one another as to how to manage situations and create opportunities. There's a book. It's called Small Church Membership Checkup. And I know you probably see this backwards, but I use this as a jumping off point for the next part of our conversation. And so what they do is they break up churches into 3 unique categories, three small church categories. So I'm going to go through each category, and then I'm going to unmute everyone and see if you kind of identify with the definition for that category. So the first is, they call it not big yet. So how I explain not big yet is, when I was in General Conference in 2012, I sat in a meeting of persons across the denomination, and we were in a conversation about small membership churches and the closing of churches. And while many of the attendees defined the small church as one that was dying, the pushback was the churches from Africa, because these leaders had a different experience of small church. So they did not see small churches as dying, but they saw them as not big yet. So what they were sharing with us is that a church that was 20 one year, the next year would be 75, because there was potential for growth, and they saw growth happening in their churches. So I do believe in Greater New Jersey, we do have some small churches that fall into this category. Churches on an upward spring that are growing in numbers as well as vitality. So is anyone on the call tonight that would say that that was your experience?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
So the question was, is it your experience that your church is just not big yet? So you are growing in numbers, but you're just not big yet. Okay, so I didn't expect that, but it's important to ask to know who's in the room, right? So the second category that the book defines is churches that they call small and struggling. So these are churches that are struggling. They long for the days when they were full and they had lots of lively ministry. And I appreciated that at the breakfast, we took some time to lament this, to lament the fact that many of our churches at one time were bigger. And sometimes what has happened is these churches have lost their connection to the community by no fault of their own, just that things have changed. And even they have changed. Most of their members no longer live in the community, and they only drive to the neighborhood where they are on Sundays. The congregants tend to be older, and they have a familiar routine. They care for one another and are prayerful. Often buildings are older, not accessible, and have parking issues. However, maintaining the location is of primary importance to the congregation. These churches are serving God, they're supporting the faithful, and they do some outreach work and mission work, but struggle just to do what is required, let alone engaging new resources. So would anyone say that that is what they would primarily relate to?
I believe that sounds like Broadway.
That would be Juliustown as well.
And is this the Broadway in Raritan or the other Broadway?
Broadway and Raritan.
Okay.
Definitely New Hope, UMC, and Pensgrove. That's us.
Okay.
I agree with that.
Thanks, man.
Okay. So we have a last category. This category is called small but steady. These are small churches that have an infusion of new life. Possibly they fit a niche where they meet the needs of a specific community. They have embraced new ideas and see the value of making changes to better adapt to their community and its needs. While they might also be struggling with older buildings, with accessibility and with parking issues, they are desiring to explore new ways to meet or circumvent these challenges. Their focus is to grow and reach new people while meeting the needs of the current congregation. Anybody feel like they're in that?
That sounds like Montana. I don't know much about Asbury yet because I won't start until July, but Montana's pretty much like that.
Anyone else? Is anyone kind of like, I'm not sure where we fit?
Yeah, that's how I feel.
Okay. And I think that we have to look at, I don't want to get feedback. That's why I keep turning on the mute. I don't think any group or any church perfectly fits any of these definitions. But I think the bigger thing to look at is to see that all of these are valuable expressions of church. All of them, not one isn't one like, well, we'll just forget that. All of them are valuable expressions of church. But I feel like if we keep trying to get the small and struggling church to do what we would like the not big yet church to do, we just frustrate people, and we don't honor who they are and who they and how they have served in the past. So the one thing that will help us to refine what the work that we want to do is we would like you to think about these definitions when you think about the last 5 years in your congregation. So not just thinking about the past year, and I know for some of the pastors this is a harder thing because you haven't necessarily been appointed to that church for 5 years. But it would be worth a conversation with your congregation as to what does our path look like in the last 5 years. So if you are a church of even 75 or 80 people, getting 1 or 2 new people is not significant. You need to grow much quicker than that. But if you're a church of 15 to 25 people and you've now somehow gotten 1 or 2 new people in the last year, then that's an important thing to look at. So when we look at these definitions, we want to look not just at the past year, but look at the past 5 years. And then the other thing is, what will your congregation look like in 5 years from now? So I worked with a church a number of years ago. They asked some local congregations that were bigger to come in and come alongside them. It was a church that had 8 people left, and they were all 80 plus years old. And they realized that when they honestly looked at the future, that their church was not going to exist for much longer. And they wanted to pass on some resources that they had as a congregation to local congregations, as well as they themselves wanted to become members. So if you would look at your congregation in 5 years from now, is anybody willing to share maybe what you would, what does it look like based on today?
I'd like to speak to that.
Okay.
Renee.
Just say your name first so we know who you are.
Carolyn Walters from Broadway. In the past year, we have a new pastor and another new pastor in Larry. And we, in the past year, we have restarted a parish group so that we are coordinating some events with other local United Methodist churches.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else would like to speak to that? What does it look like if you look around your congregation? How do you see, the future? What would it, if it's just like today?
This is Linda from Juliustown. So I've kind of gotten through this a little bit already with the congregation and have shown them how things have changed over the last 5 years. Getting them to look into the future is a little bit more difficult. So they can see their decline, although we've had several little joys in the past 5 years. We're basically holding our own. And one of the things that we currently do is we do a significant number of roast beef dinners. They are phenomenal at doing them. But you can tell that everybody is getting a little bit tired and a little bit more cranky as they do them. And our age is getting, is creeping up there as well. And I would see that we probably will likely lose, or people will become to the point where participating in something that's a significant fundraiser for the church and keeping the doors open, that participation is going to decline to the point where I am concerned that we will no longer be able to hold the roast beef dinners, and the income that we'll lose from the roast beef dinners will not be made up by individual giving, and we will slowly not be able to make our apportionments and not be able to pay our bills. And I think then we'll start to see the church truly come to an end.
So I think that's probably a thing with a lot of churches, is participation becomes a challenge when it's a smaller church. Anyone else like to share? So the small and steady church, one of the significant aspects of a small and steady church is the fact that this church is ready for change. Now, this is very unique because more than half of our long-established churches and ourselves are resistant to change. So what do you think would be the case for your congregation? How resistant to change is your congregation? So I thought, when you think about that, does making change create conflict in your congregation? So if you move the pulpit, is there going to be a challenge? If you add a TV screen, are people going to be upset? If you change the music style, what would be the reaction? And then even what would it look like for you no longer to look, the ultimate would be, what would it look like to no longer be worshiping in your specific space that you have now? So how do you feel like your congregations would react, or how do they react to change?
This is Larry at Montana, and I was pleasantly surprised that people are very interested in making changes. I've made a few changes here and there, and they're really with a lot of enthusiasm about it. I was rather surprised at that, and there's talk about making other changes, like being able to have a screen with a text on the screen and things like that. So I was surprised at that. We'll see if I can make it happen.
Okay. So Larry's Montana congregation is open to change. Anybody else's congregation been willing to make some changes?
This is Jesse from Broadway, Port Colborne, and Barrington. I would say, yeah, we're not adverse to change. What it feels like is that we're adverse to change in a vacuum. We're adverse to change that. I'm sorry?
Hear more about that.
So we're adverse to change if church council or trustees makes a decision without input from the rest of the church. At these sizes, it's so small, and everyone's interrelated, or at least have known each other for so long, that anytime we make a change, there's 20 people in the room, there's 40 different opinions on what actually should have happened. And if the change occurs without communication, that's when we feel the pushback. But if I try to change something and I just make it known, I'm trying to think of an easy example. I added the Psalter reading and the passing of the peace back to church. And, I felt some pushback, but I explained why I did it. I explained why we're doing it and that there is rationale for that. And pretty much after that, that was a kind of change that was easy to accept. We're changing a little bit of our food pantry ministry. And again, as long as we're talking about these changes, people seem more apt to accept them rather than just, well, we can't talk about it in a big meeting. If we get too many different opinions, it's never going to work. I'm finding almost being more Methodist, more holy conferencing is actually more useful for our community.
So people want a voice in change. They don't want it to be imposed on them. They want to be a part of it. And I think that that's how you as congregations, you don't want some resource to be imposed upon you, but you have a voice in it. So that's why we're involving small churches specifically in this resource of Small Church Strong, so that we have at least some of your experience as part of it. Thank you. Anybody else? How does your congregation relate to change?
I don't know if you can hear me.
You're very quiet.
Oh, sorry, because I'm on my laptop. Sorry, Gina.
That's okay.
This is Nicole from Good Shepherd in Northfield. So I agree with feeding them bits of change instead of making a big change all at once. When we got the television screens, the one thing we did is we literally just left the screens up and didn't turn them on at first. Just let them absorb having change, and then eventually bringing them in little by little, because they're not good with a drastic, a quick change.
I think that maybe people have the opportunity to, because we as leaders set up things in advance, and so we've had time to get used to ideas. Whereas if we spring it on our congregations, we're not necessarily going to get the best response. I know if I move around furniture and never tell my husband, and he's tripping over something, that never goes over well. So Anyone else?
Sarah Lee here. I think both of my congregations do well with smaller changes, like the worship's going to change or the altar's going to be different. And we also tend to tolerate change where we're going to try something new for like a short period of time and then evaluate it and see how it goes. I think all of those are easy and they can kind of envision the value added or the outcome. But larger scale change, such as, you know, giving up a building for the sake of the mission or witness, I don't see us having the spiritual resources to embrace that kind of change on that scale.
And that's a very big ask.
Yeah.
That's a really big ask of churches to get to that point. And often what happens is churches don't make those choices until they're forced to. And it's and like this church that had 8 people at 80. They had said they had wished that they had done it before that. But at least at that point they were going to, they wanted to make it right. So they wanted to do the right thing for their church. So yes, I think sometimes those big asks are really hard. Has anyone had to make any significant changes about their building just because of structural issues and not being able to, you know, get in the sanctuary, sometimes, you know, fires, anything like that in their past?
Round Valley has had to change their building in a big way in the past, well before my time.
Mm-hmm.
They had to remove the steeple and move the main door from the right side of the building to the left side of the building. And to this day, we have a steeple fund that has $10,000 in it, and it's probably never going to have more than $10,000. And it's obviously not enough to do the work. And we all long for, well, not we, not because I do not, but in general, the congregation that was there longs for that to be restored. And I just don't see that happening.
Anyone else have that their congregation at one time had to endure some kind of major change? So the thing that I think that when we look at that, we recognize that probably as fast as the rest of the world changes, and people are required to change. So if we look at the way that people even did grocery shopping 5 or 10 years ago, it's probably very different the way they do grocery shopping today. It happened incrementally, and it by, you know, there was no choice. Everything was, you know, the way supermarkets or small shops or whatever way that they used to shop, it keeps changing. If we think about the way we Christmas shopped maybe 10 years ago, it's probably different than the way we Christmas shop online with some things now. So society changes and we just change because we have to. But with churches happen to kind of hold on a little bit longer. And so that's why we have to be very strategic in the way that we introduce change to churches, and that we make sure that it doesn't seem like we're just changing for change's sake, but that we actually fully make people a partner in making these changes for the growth of the kingdom of God, that God's kingdom will be richer and more people will know the love of Christ because of the actions of churches today. Does anyone have any questions before I go on to the last part of the call?
Actually, at Montana, I forgot about that. They about a year, 2 years ago, they went to an MP3 player for playing hymns, and everybody seems to accept it. Unfortunately, our organist has problems with her hands and only plays about once a month. So that was I think that's a pretty big change for people to use an MP3 player, and people are okay with it.
And I think music is going to be one of the probably the first ways that a lot of small churches have to change, because you can no longer find those part-time musicians to just play on Sunday morning. So the next step of what I'm going to ask you all is I'm going to email you a link to a survey. And this survey is just specifically for the congregations that are kind of a part of this summer pilot program that we have here. So not every small church across G&J will be a part of this survey. It's only about 20 churches in all. And what we are asking is that pastors and laity take the survey. So pass on the link to the survey to people that are in committees, people who are in your choir, the Sunday school. If you happen to have any church staff, so maybe you have an administrator of some kind, but so it's not just one survey for each church, but as many surveys as, because it will give us a richer understanding of the small churches in our conference by having more voices than just the pastor's voice and the lay member's voice. And we'll leave this survey open till June 30th. When we compile all of your answers, that will create for us a template to create a survey for small membership churches across G&J. When we send it out to all 290 churches, it has to have a lot more multiple choice answers in it. Whereas for you, we're asking you, what are the top 3 gifts of your congregation? And ask you to write, down what they are. What are the top 3 challenges? You as a leader or a pastor, what are your top 3 gifts? What are your top 3 challenges? Then we'll take all of those answers, and it'll be able to be a multiple choice piece for the rest of the churches. After we get this information together, we will be able to launch the Small Church Strong information sessions for September, beginning in September. Any questions about that?
I have one. Who are the 20 small churches that are participating?
Who are the 20 small churches?
Or I guess, how are they identified? I don't need to know the list. But
they were churches. First of all, they were churches that went to the Small Church Strong breakfast, so that they had that first gathering. It's also churches who had signed up in the past for interest in small membership churches resources. And what we tried to do is just pick from them so that they matched different demographics across the conference.
Cool, that makes sense. Thank you for meeting my curiosity.
No problem. And I mean, if any of you feel like, you know what, I feel like this church is a really good example and we could get some good feedback, please do not hesitate, because it's not so exclusive that we couldn't add someone. My main piece was that I needed to have a smaller group give us information that we could come up with checklist for the rest of the churches so that the survey could be simpler. Okay, well, I am grateful for the time that you all were willing to give me in this conversation. It was in this, over the summer, I might send you emails or ask if I could give you a call, because building relationships and having conversations with people will help us make sure that we're offering resources that matter to you more than resources that we think are valuable. I want to make sure that we are targeting the things that that are important to you as small churches. We do have a few things that are kind of, we prioritized, and one was the Simple Church committee formation. And so that will definitely be something, the information that we'll be offering. We're also looking at what are the important things for you and for your buildings. So what inspections should you be having? So just some important things that I know as a local church pastor, nobody ever gave me a list of things like that. And then it was kind of a big surprise when the insurance company came and told me that there was stuff wrong. So what does it look like to know those things in advance? So some of those things are things that are practical resources that we're looking at, as well as how do we maybe point you to, if you want to do mission, and how could you maybe collaborate in mission in an area, things like that. But we're mostly wanting to look at the feedback so we know, okay, how can we help you accentuate your gifts, and then also help you face the challenges that you point out are your challenges. So I just thank you for your time tonight. I thank you for hearing the joys that you have, and it will be especially important for me to continue to share with the rest of the staff the good things that are happening in small churches and the joys that you actually lifted up tonight. So I have a great night. Where I am right now, it's not raining, so I'm hoping that where you are, it's not raining either, and that you can enjoy the rest of the night. And I hope we will see each other on the 1st September call, the 1st September Zoom call that we'll set up. But please, if you need anything, feel free to reach out to me. You can call or email. You have a great night. Thanks.
Thank you, Tina.
Thank you,
Tina.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Great night to you all.
We went down to the